I'm Maureen Ballatori, and this is Spilled Salt, a podcast on the thrills and spills from the food, beverage, and agriculture industries. Today's guest is Seth Bahler. He's the CEO at Oakridge Dairy, based in Ellington, Connecticut. He's fifth generation on the farm. They've been around for around 130 years, and they are the largest single site in New England, largest single dairy site in New England. They just launched Moozy, which is a canned fresh milk line of products in fresh flavors like chocolate, strawberry, horchata, coffee milk, and others. For anybody who's watching the episode here, I've got a can of the fresh coffee milk if you want to see what that looks like, but you can also look them up online and visit their website, follow them on all the socials. I visited the Oakridge farm a few weeks ago. It's a gorgeous operation with a methane digester. They have a milking rotary, a creamery, and so much more. It's always so interesting and inspiring to me to see farms who are bringing themselves forward into the future, and Oakridge clearly has a vision on setting themselves up for success to be around for another 50 years and more, I'm sure, based on what they're setting up. They take excellent care of their cows as well, many of which are A2 milk cows. We talk about that a little bit on the episode, as well as many of the things that they're doing to be the farm of the future. Enjoy the conversation. Thanks for joining me today. I'm so glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I always like to start with the background, people's kind of history. I'm a big believer that the past informs the future, but especially for farmers, because there is this dichotomy or this balance of growing up on the farm and do you want to stay on the farm. So talk a little bit about your days as a youth leading up to the work you're doing now.
Yeah. So the office that I'm sitting in is my office, is the house that I grew up in. So I'm a fifth generation farm. My great grandfather started the farm back in 1890. Grew up around it, used to go to work with my dad at 3 a.m. and help milk cows on Saturdays. I would go because the guy that was working at the time would bring donuts. So it would be like, hey, get donuts on Saturday.
Yeah.
So yeah, grew up around it, but it was never a passion of mine. My dad actually was a partner with his two cousins and brothers of the farm. So there was 4 owners and two cousins and a brother. And at that time, there was some dysfunction, and they all got along, but they didn't really ever talk about anything. So the business was kind of pretty stagnant, not a lot of reinvestment, a bit of frustration. So I saw my dad go through that and kind of shaped me to, hey, let's find a different career path, because this doesn't
Because
look
it wasn't
fun.
seeming pretty attractive, right? Yeah.
My dad was an owner, but it wasn't fun. And actually, when I was in starting high school, he actually left and became a silent partner of the farm. So we still lived on the farm, but he wasn't working there, and he went out and found another job for several years because he was just frustrated, but didn't really want to mess the business up. So he stepped aside, and you know
Wow.
that's what my youth was growing up, is of seeing some dysfunction. But it's
Yeah.
common in a family business, and especially inheriting a business partner that's your second cousin isn't your brother anymore. So over the generations, it's been a challenge to stay aligned. And as a we're a Bahler. I'm a Bahler, and we're not great communicators at times. So sometimes that makes it hard to run a business together. So
Mm-hmm.
after growing up, I went to high school. I worked I was gonna get out of high school and go become a plumber and HVAC. My uncle owned a HVAC company. Um, so I worked for them for about a year through high school, and then out of high school, I was going to be an apprentice for plumbing, and came to realize, I'm like, I need to go do something myself. Like I don't know. I would say I have a um, entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm like, I can go do something myself. My brother had his own landscaping lawn business, and I'm like, that looks like fun. He works hard, but like it's what he's building is his. So um,
Yeah.
that the winter after high school graduation, the next spring, I started a construction and fencing business that I was 19 years old, and started that the first year. I actually cut my fingers off, so that was I got in a
Really?
I got in a boating accident and got the rope wrapped around my fingers.
Oh,
So the first year I'm working with my hands, and I was in a cast for about 9 months because my three of my fingers got cut off.
wow.
But that was the first year, but I guess that was a big shaping moment in my life of like, hey, like work for yourself, you gotta figure it out. So
Mm-hmm.
ran that construction business and fencing business for around 6 years. And I was at the point in my business. I had employees, I had equipment, and I was looking to what is the next step in this business. I guess I sometimes get bored. So like we're doing projects, we're doing commercial, like doing fencing for tennis courts and guardrails and all that. But it's like, what's the next step? So I did some research in manufacturing of like, could I start manufacturing these products? And that was right around the time the bank told our family, like, hey, what is your succession plan? What is your next steps? And are you, if you don't have any plan, you either need to sell or figure it out. So that's right at the time when they reached, it was like 6 years into my business. I was around 23. Reached out to the next generation, which is 13 of us. One of them was working on the farm, and there's 13 that aren't. I believe it's 13. And they asked us, hey, do you have any interest? And personally, I said, no, I'm good. Uh, I have my own thing going on, and don't have any interest. But somehow, God's direction, or however it went, I said I'll listen. And
Mm.
I guess out of the the challenges that I saw maybe inspired me of like, hey, we could make this better. It's probably that same spirit of entrepreneurship of like, hey, there's a lot of opportunity there, but there's a big mountain. And at that same time, I was approached by an individual that was interested in buying my company. So um, things worked out, and
Wow.
I
Talk about
I ended up
serendipity.
yes. So I ended up selling my business and coming to work. I wrote my own job description. They're working with a consulting firm on next generation, and they said, "Oh, you want to work here? What do you want to do?" I'm like, "Well, here's I have some maintenance background because I had construction, and I do enjoy business. So maybe I could do some on the business side and some on the maintenance side, and that's where I started."
Yeah. And so you're CEO now. How long did it take you to get there?
So I started in spring or early spring of 2013, and by the fall time they named me as general manager, and it was I really had no clue about the dairy industry, honestly. Like how I was named the general manager is, I guess I had a lot of energy, and came in. I had some business background, so I kind of really put a lot of energy there of like, okay, let's set some structure in place. Let's get some things in order, and then maintenance as well. I came in and did maintenance and um, in business. So those were like the two weakest links. So like I gained a lot of credit from the employees because things started getting fixed and they saw energy. So like built was able to build a lot of rapport really quickly because hey, that gate's been broken for the past year. let's fix it. So got a lot of credit from like every employee there, and then also the business side of there was a lot of
Right.
things that were, the business was run in a way that a family farm ran through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and it
Hmm.
needed some restructuring to make that um, better. So put my efforts in there. By the fall time, they named me as general manager, and really gave me the reins. It was my uncle and my dad's two cousins. My dad wasn't involved at the time in the business, working in the business, and
Hmm.
so end of 2013 like gave me the reins. And I think that the biggest challenge that I saw, besides the maintenance in the finance and business side, was the ownership that was holding back the business. So I got to spend about 2 years in the business, working on that ownership side of ownership is and management is separate, and that is not the same. And
Hmm.
restructured, and had to put the owners that have been getting a salary from the farm, like, here's your job, here's your responsibilities, here's what you're accountable for, and here's your salary that should reflect it. And got to, at the time the farm was paying for the housing, the insurance, the food, and all that, and like, okay, here's your budgets and stuff like that. So that was honestly the biggest thing holding back the business, and that's what I probably worked
Yeah.
on for the first 2 years of after we worked through some of the business, like the day-to-day things, is high level
Hmm.
of how do we separate our ownership and management, because that is what is going to keep us here long term. And fortunately or unfortunately, had to make some really hard decisions, and I think had to let family go, had to promote and demote. But thankfully,
Yeah.
the family was at a point where they were uh, at their, they didn't have much energy left, so they let me, as an unknown farmer, or have no background in farming except for living by it, make some decisions, and hire the right people to get in management. And thankfully, we had a really good year in 2014 that gave some credit as well, which great milk
Hmm.
prices. So, um, and
Yeah,
then
I
so
think leadership is partially the about the being able to be responsible enough to make the tough decisions. I do think communication is a cornerstone of it too. You have to be able to communicate, right? So hopefully that's something that you mentioned. Baylors are not very good at that. You're gonna, you know, like it or not, you're going to have to figure that out, right? Everybody has to along the way. But I think the other is luck, right? And some of it is, for you in that story that you just told, some of it was serendipity and luck in terms of, the somebody coming to you about the construction business just as this was falling into place, the great milk prices the first year that probably built trust and respect from,
yeah.
the folks on the farm. So when you came in 2013 and there was this conversation about succession, you mentioned that there were roughly 13 other family members in Gen 5 that were kind of part of this discussion as well. Did other folks come in, because you've also since brought in outside partners as well, right? Which I think is more common now, but like you referenced the 70s and 80s, that didn't used to happen then, right? It was just, don't, for the love of God, let anybody else in here. This is a family only operation. So simplified, two questions: who else came in when you came in, and what have you evolved in terms of partnerships on the farm since then?
Yeah, at that time, I had one cousin here, and um, one of my other cousins was hauling milk as a third party. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and myself, so I actually was the only one at the time that came in.
Oh,
And
okay.
over the years, others have come and gone. One of my brothers came to work here after college, and did a year or two here, and he wanted to start his own business, so he went and went a different direction, and we've had other cousins come along the way. I do um, have one other cousin in the business. He is an amazing operator, and he loves to operate, and he wants to
Mhm.
operate, and he doesn't want to be a manager. And I totally respect that. And um, I think like that's how the business is, like, putting people in their sweet spot. And so I do have one other cousin in the business. Um, we have about 60 employees. We have about 45 to 50 owners. 80% of the family,
Wow.
80% of the business is family owned. Um, Meaning the Bahler family. And then we have raised some outside capital when we did an expansion on the dairy in 2017.
Yep.
So we did raise some outside, and I like to say like 80% is owned by the family, and the other 20% is owned by my other family, from my wife's uh, family, and other community people that understand our business, that want to support us. So really,
Yeah.
I think it's all family. I would I have every owner's number, and go out to lunch with most of them if they're in town. And it's not like it's a VC business. It's
Mm.
more people that want to see our succeed, and invest in our future and leadership. And so I think
Yeah.
they're all family. We just had an annual meeting, and I think that's really how, like, over the years as an owner, the four Baylor owners, they're still the major owners, but they now that, like, I'm the CEO, like, we're accountable to more than four owners, um,
Right.
even though they own majority. But there's metrics, or there's like accountability in place for the owners on both sides. So it's like, hey, we're
Right.
running a business. We need to make sure that we're all accountable. Like, and I'm accountable. I can be replaced. So we need to
Mhm.
do our job the best we possibly can.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. I think that it's a fresh mindset and perspective that is hopefully inspiring to other dairies and other any type of farm operation across the US and the North America and the world for that matter. I think it's a great way to think about it. So Oakridge is the largest dairy farm in the Northeast. And so first of all, largest how, talk about that a little bit. And then secondly, I would love for you to talk a little bit about some of the innovations that are on the farm as well. The size, the scale of the barns are massive. I was touring there a couple weeks ago, and they're enormous. It just reminds me, I grew up on a dairy farm as well, and my dad had one tiny barn that held like maybe 50 head at once, for milking. And so it's cool to see at that size and scale. But so talk about like the barns, the digester, the rotary, the creamery, the exciting stuff, but also like the scale of the operation.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say we're the largest in the Northeast, but one of the largest single, or we're the largest in Connecticut, one of the largest in New England. New York is still the Northeast, so there is some really large farms out in the western part of New York. So
Yeah.
in New England, we're one of the largest single sites. We have about 7 acres under roof. We're a cross ventilated barn. So we're milking around 2,600 cows every day, and then with dries and all that, we're about 3,000 total head. Um, it's all under one roof, and we we built it in 2017. I think, stepping back, like, after we got the family structure in place, it's like we have a lot of opportunities for future, but our sites are very depreciated, and where do we
Mm,
go from here? So instead of investing millions of dollars in polishing something that can't be polished, let's build something new that can be here for another 50 years. So we built a brand new facility in 2017. This the Throughout the years, we've invested into a lot of technology and innovation, and have come up with partnerships, as you mentioned, a methane digester. We partnered with a utility company, a developing company, that we have a methane digester. we have solar, we have you know, we've embraced technology. Our vision is to be the farm of the future, and really, we want to. There's a lot of aspects of that, and we can talk about that. But it's our goal is to be here for another 50 years. And Connecticut is a very unique state, very higher, or it's high cost production. Land is a bit challenging. I think we have
Mm.
close to 70 fields that we rent. Our
Oh,
largest field.
really?
Yeah, so we rent a lot of ground, and we have a lot of smaller pieces. We farm 10 acres of land where people in the Midwest wouldn't even touch that. So
Right.
we're in a unique spot in Connecticut. But I think so our cost of production is higher. If we were to build a dairy in the state, it wouldn't be, or sorry, in the country, again, it probably wouldn't be Connecticut. But I think the
Yeah.
uniqueness of the 30 million people within 100 miles of us is
Yeah.
where we see opportunity in the future. And
Right.
thankfully, we've had 130 years in this community. The community embraces us, and we have something special where we are milking cows, um, 2,000 feet from the center of town, where the town hall, the police station, all that. Like, we can read the high school scoreboard from our 20 million gallon manure lagoon. um
Yeah.
just a very unique space. But we feel like, how do we take that to be our advantage? Because
Hmm.
we can't add another 1,000 cows or 2,000 cows to our barn. We can add some, and we will over time. But um the 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 growth for us is really, how do we build a brand? And the pieces that we've been doing is, how do we make sure our cows are treated the best possible way, because they're the main engine of a dairy. So treating cows the best possible way, getting the best quality milk. So we've done a lot in that space, and we produce over 100 pounds per cow every day. And things are clicking very well on the dairy. And over the past couple of years, we've been stepping into the building the Oakridge brand, as well as some other projects that we can speak on.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go there next. You recently launched Moozy. And so for anybody who's watching, I have a can here. So fresh canned milk. Talk a little bit about why you launched that and how that's part of your innovation plan into the future.
Yeah, maybe I can step back for like 2 minutes and talk a bit
Yeah.
about how we got there. So, 2017, we built a brand new dairy. Moved into it thinking we're going to be moving in our two 60-year-old sites. We're going to move into a brand new site, and everything's going to go great. Um, Honestly, it was a train wreck. Made a lot of
Mm.
bad decisions, and moved in, and like, it was complete. Yeah, it was just really, it didn't go
Bad
well for a
decisions
couple.
and it
Meaning,
didn't go
like,
well and you made like
we were,
because of the way it was produced.
no, we just, not bad decision, but like, inexperience. So we moved
Okay.
everything over we built this brand new barn, and we were so burnt out of construction, because we can GC'd this, you know, millions of dollars of projects, and we were like running the day to day. And then all of a sudden, hey, let's move the cows over. And like, just maybe a bit of inexperience. And we learned a lot now that maybe we would build another dairy just so we could do it better again.
Mm.
But it kind of set us back. And at that time, 2017, 2018, it was really hard. Milk price was not good, our production was not
Mm.
good, and it made it really challenging. But at that same time, it's like, how do we get some glimmers of hope? This is just going to be a grind. We need to, like, you can't change a dairy overnight. It takes time and investing in uh the cows, and really, like, it's going to take several years to really get this thing moving. But how do we take steps into building a brand? So at that 2018 time, we're like, hey, let's explore some different ways to at least get our feet wet in there, because we know this is going to be a grind. We don't have a ton of money to invest into any products, but we need to get something started. So we uh we explored, like, let's just get some of our milk bottled, and put a little fridge out on our steps or whatever, just to get our feet wet, and came up with the concept of, hey, people are getting home delivery. Like, could we take a blast from the past of the whole milkman and put some modern technology to create, like, to bring back the milkman? So we built a website called The Modern Milkman, where it was a home delivery. We took milk from our farm, brought it to a farm up the street that was about 20 minutes from us, bottled it in glass bottles, and we did glass because that was the way milkman, people remember the
Right.
milkman, but also that was the only plant that would allow us to do it, so we had to do glass.
So Seth,
Because
prior to that, were you not bottling anything?
no, we were
Like, were
not
you just
bottling
selling
anything.
into a co-op? Okay.
Yeah, selling into a co-op. We did have a partnership
Interesting.
years ago with Stu Leonard's, um,
Yep.
that we would be their supplier, but we were just bottling, or sorry, we were just selling commodity milk. And really,
Got
I
it.
think,
Okay.
so it's like, how do we explore it? So we started bottling at this farm. We'd bottle, a couple cases on a Monday, come back to the farm. One of the older milk rooms that we had, we put some insulation in and made it into a small walk-in cooler. So we built the website called The Modern Milkman. People could order online, and we deliver it throughout the week. So that was our kickstart into building a brand. That was through 2019. And by 2019, end of 2019, we had about 300 customers. It was really just a good way to connect with community and, build the good reputation for the farm. And then 2020 hit, and we went from, 300 customers to 3,000 customers with COVID, and it springboarded our business. And it gave us the ability to get our brand and name out there, still under that Modern Milkman brand. Now we're renting the plant 3 or 4 days a week that the guy so nicely let us use. And we were hiring anybody that
Yeah.
even could drive, or maybe they even didn't know how to drive. We'd hire them just to do deliveries. And COVID was crazy, but it was a springboard for us to get our name out there. And we were able to hold on to a lot of those customers through 21, 22, 23. um, at that same time, what we started in 2019, there was another Modern Milkman started in the UK. We were modernmilkman.com. There was modernmilkman.co.uk. Same
Hmm.
concept, same, returnable packaging was their focus. And they started in the UK, and we would get confused sometimes of, like, someone would reach out on social media, oh, you dropped off the wrong milk, or you hit my vehicle, or something like that. We're like, so we ended up connecting through social media, and the CEO and I ended up talking every couple months of, like, hey, how's it going over in the UK? Like, this is the same name. We just connected through the
Yeah.
name. COVID, they exploded. They ended up the first year they got up to 9,000 customers, and then COVID,
Wow.
they got up to like 100,000 customers. Um,
Wow.
their concept is a little bit different, but currently they're delivering to about 250,000 deliveries a week. They have about 500 trucks on the road in the UK. I bring that in saying we had the same name, same concept, and we ended up started talking. They have the technology that can scale. They have the sales arm and the understanding. So 2023, we started talking like, hey, how do we do the same what they did in the UK with 200,000 deliveries a week, getting fresh milk? How do we do that same thing in the US? And we ended up merging our businesses in 2024, and that would be merging the last mile, the customers.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be the bottling plant. That would be the customers and the sales arm. So in the technology, so we're really good at producing milk and bottling. They're really good at selling and delivering. So we merged
Yeah.
together. There, that's another luck fate. However, that worked, but very aligned in a lot of things. Same language. A lot of their executive team have moved to the U.S. now, and but that was the ability to, growing that has been given us the ability to build our own bottling plant, which we did in 2024. So we built a bottling plant. We own and operate that and supply milk to the Modern Milkman, the home delivery side. But that has also given us the ability to control quality, and every aspect of it grow. We were renting that little family farm to bottle our milk, and it was like we couldn't do anything extra. So since we built our own
Yeah.
bottling plant in 2014, it has given, sorry, 2024 has given us the ability
Yep.
to expand and do innovation and play around with new products, as well as come up with projects like the Moozy brand that we just launched. So it's our goal is to like, we really want to be known as the premium milk in the Northeast. That's our vision, or our target is to be the number one brand for premium milk. And we've really been focused on that, through the Modern Milkman, but also in other channels, in getting into higher end retail channels, getting on store shelves and that type of stuff. But stepping over to Moozy is about end of 2024. We have the plant, and looking at different ways that we can continue to grow the milk through the plant. Like we the plant, the bottling plant or Oakridge Creamery is, we have about a mile away from the dairy. It's north of the dairy, and then our co-op that we send our milk is south of the dairy. And every load that goes north, we get paid more money for. So
Oh
how do we
yeah,
get how
totally.
do we get how do we get more of our milk north is our goal. And so, because going south, it goes to, as we're paid as a commodity, and
Right.
it's harder to do. So how do we do that
And
and build
just
a
out of
brand?
curiosity, with the milk that's going south into the co-op, your cows are all A2 milk cows. So
Yep.
do you have any sort of premium when it goes into the co-op, or is it like, do they treat it differently, or is it just milk? Is it just it's treated the same
N-
as the
No,
farmer down
so
the street?
actually, so how we do it is we have about 4 or 5 pens in our barn that are A2 cows only. So we
Uh-huh.
segregate those, and then we milk
I
them
see.
separately on the days we need milk from our creamery. So, or we need milk to the north, we milk
Yeah,
those in a separate tank. But then
got
everything
it.
else that goes to the co-op is not A2 specific.
Got
But
it.
we've been
And why
breeding for
is
A2
that?
for just because we tested our whole herd, and we got about 65% of our herd being A2. So we can't claim it 100%. So we
I
just
see.
want our milk to be A2 in our bottles. But
Makes
we don't have
sense.
enough to, and there's really no premium from the in our area because there's nobody requiring A2. Although it's
Yep.
becoming more and more a big thing,
Mhm.
in well known in America now.
Mhm. Yeah. So the Modern Milkman acquisition partnership, that the merging in 2024 allowed you to build the bottling plant and bring that in-house, which, as you mentioned, allowed you to have an opportunity to elevate and innovate, which brought you Moozy. And so talk a little bit about the brand development there, because not only were you able to secure some grants to help underwrite building that brand, but you also had some really great partnerships with some behemoths like DMI. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think what inspired this is, I think a couple different things and happened in a short window of, I drank my first liquid death and saw what they did with water, and I'm like, "Hey, we could do this with milk. Like, why don't we do this with milk?" At that same time frame, DMI sent over. I've got to know Paul over at DMI, and he's on the innovation team and futures team, and he sent me over a slide deck of 100 ideas that they've came up with concept. And and one of those was a canned milk. I'm like, oh, that is really cool. Um, and then that same time, I was talking to somebody that does a lot of milk in schools, and they have cardboard school milk, and it's like, they were complaining about how packaging is hard, and they measure their success on how many leakers they have every week of the cardboard leaking, and the bad experience in schools, and like, why don't they do it in a can? So I think that's what inspired the idea of like a few things happening. So we ended up coming up with a concept of like, hey, let's get milk in an aluminum can, make milk cool. Like, how do we do that? So we submitted a grant through Northeast Innovation Center, and kind of at the end of 2024, and kind of left it of, hey, well, we submitted the grant, if we get it, well, let's explore it more. But it took a couple months to see if we were awarded that grant, and in that time, did some more and more research, and things came up, and it's like, hey, we really need to consider doing this if we get the grant or not. Couple
Mm-hmm.
months later, we did hear back saying, hey, you were awarded this grant to build some equipment or put some equipment in to try to figure this out. So we're a grade A IMS milk plant, so it's just a pasteurized plant. And honestly, fresh milk has never been put into a aluminum can before. So over the last year, we've been working on how do we get this done. We've partnered with our Department of Ag, who regulate the milk, um, or milk plants in Connecticut, as well as Bree on our team worked for the Department of Ag and has been trained through FDA. So we've had some connections with the FDA on how do we do this. And over the past year, we've been really exploring and designing and building our canning project. So from an operation standpoint, we bought a can filler that was out of Athletic Brewing Company, that did non-alcoholic beer. Like, we took that and then totally revamped it and made it with all 3A compliance valves, and we did a ton of work on the operation side over the past year. Alongside of that, we worked on the branding side, and early on, it's like, hey, how do we brand this? What do we do? And it's a couple thoughts, or like, let's just put an Oakridge logo on it and
Mm.
put it on shelves. And at the I saw more opportunity. Glass bottle milk is I see a Northeast regional thing for Oakridge. But I do see, how do we get beyond that into a national presence? Cans could be our avenue. So we worked and searched around and talked with two marketing agencies, and ended up going with Fresh Made, who is a branding agency out of Florida, and came to them with the concept of, we want to get milk in aluminum cans, and we want to make it cool for the next generation. We have really good tasting milk. We see milk as a beverage that has been kind of gone away from. But the taste and the flavors that we are doing, the whole milk with chocolate and coffee and strawberry, and the flavors that we do, it's really good tasting. And I think we could put that up against any beverage, and we will win, from a soda or from an indulgent standpoint. So we went to Fresh Maiden with the concept of, we don't have a name, we want to do this, we got a grant, but let's design something that's really, innovative, and cool. So we engaged with them, as well as we had the contacts with DMI, and DMI has worked alongside us. We talked with Paul and his team on the innovation, and before we engaged with Freshmade, they came up with some naming ideas and stuff like that. But then Freshmade took it and ran, and we came up with a few different names, but landed on Moozy, landed on the premium feel, the good tasting, the packaging. And then DMI was working alongside of us, of like doing consumer testing, and they, you know, being part of the project and consumer testing, they invited us to go to Expo West with them to launch this product. So in the
Which is
spring,
basically, for anybody who's not familiar, is essentially the Super Bowl of food shows.
yeah.
Expo West
So
is, yeah.
so that was really cool. Is they end of last year, they asked, hey, we've been part of this Moozy project. We see a lot of opportunity. Could you be part of our booth at Expo West? And we said, absolutely. We didn't have any milk in a can. We didn't have the equipment even finalized. But that gave us a deadline that we needed by February 22nd. We needed to ship milk to California.
Yeah.
And honestly, we got the equipment in 2 weeks before testing and working through that. We made our first sample batch that we sent to California on the 21st, and it got on a truck the next day. And we never even like had a week of experience in it. So we're like, we hope it tastes good in a week. We
Yeah.
did some like internal testing, but we
Right.
we fill the can with our filler and all that. So we wanted to make sure. So we sent it to Expo West, and it was a huge success. We had huge buyers coming to our booth and saying, "This is amazing. We love the innovation. We love the packaging. We love the taste." And where do how do we access this? So I think that was about 2 months ago, and we've made our second or our first for sale batch about 2 weeks ago. So we had about another month to get everything dialed in and get it final approvals. And we made our first for sale batch about it was 2 weeks ago, and it's starting to hit shelves now. So we'll see where that goes, but we've engaged with a great agency partner the past couple weeks, and we want to really take this brand, Agency 29. We want to take this brand and really grow it with a national presence, but really focused on the Northeast right now. We have some self distribution through Oakridge, so we've got it in all that. We've
Yep.
worked with partners like Stu Leonard's. We got it on their shelves, as well as we have a small distributor that is distributing milk we've worked with in the past through Modern Milkman that distributes lunch meats and chips and stuff like that, and they're distributing it locally and have some early stage sales for us. But where we go from here is we're talking with some national distributors as well as some national chains to see how we can get this national. But we also want
Yeah.
to do it right. We're also doing shelf life studies. This
Yeah.
is a refrigerated product, so it's there's a lot to work through.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And I want to go back to something that you said, that fresh milk has never been put in a can before, just to clarify the difference between, something like there is another product that is in a can that is milk, but it's not fresh, right? That is retort produced.
Yep.
And I don't
Yep.
want to knock anybody, so I won't mention their brand name, but there are similar products out there from the consumer lens, but in your perspective it's wildly different because what you're doing is putting it fresh in the can. It's cold chain all the way through, and so it has a very different flavor profile and freshness taste to it because of the way that you're producing it.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah,
Yeah.
there is a few products out there in retort.
Yep.
Retort is, pasteurizing it in the can, which, you have to heat it up and pressurize it, and it does change the flavor profile. And our brand Moozy, we really want to focus on flavor first. Really good tasting milk fresh from the farm. So branding it around that, as well as
Yeah.
the three or four companies that have milk in a can are in the protein space. So really protein drinks, meal replacement, that type of stuff. Um,
Right.
and that is, so I put that in a separate category of like meal replacement protein drinks is different than the fresh milk, good tasting chocolate milk is in a different category of itself. So we're
Right.
there is dairy in cans, but I don't believe we're first of its kind of a IMS plant getting dairy in a can. um
Yeah, and also very different in another sense too, which is you are all in with this product on the what you said, make it cool for the next generation. So really intentionally branding and marketing this to Gen Z, Gen Alpha, that um care about that sort of thing. I mean, for many years it and still there's been a lot of discussion about millennials a bit, but and still but a lot of Gen Z really caring about the mission driven, the sustainability, the story behind the brand. And so at Liquid Death is an excellent example of brand winning and story behind the brand winning in a category to allow vast differentiation thanks to brand building efforts. And so I think that's we are Agency 29 are very excited to work with you guys on Moozy for that reason, because not only does it have innovation and differentiation in terms of how you're producing it with what you were just talking about in terms of retort versus fresh milk production, but also this angle of we're all in on building something for younger generations, and let's see what kind of an impact that can make, not only for Moozy and Moozy's traction, but also to get Gen Z, Gen Alpha drinking more milk. And so to kind of take that into as we wind down here the last couple minutes of our discussion, um, the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act just recently passed, which allows whole milk to be brought back into schools, which is theorized that one of the reasons why Gen Z in particular, and a bit of millennials, but stopped drinking a lot of milk is because it was primarily skim that was in schools, which has a very different taste profile than whole milk, right? So I just think that this is kind of the perfect storm of all of these things happening at the same time, where schools are welcoming whole milk back into the schools as an option for younger students, but Moozy being well positioned and well timed, and honestly, from the stories that you tell here, Seth, you should play the lottery because you're a very lucky person. And I don't mean to say that that's the that that's the essence of this. It is a lot of your hard work lining up with recognizing opportunity to be able to lean into the opportunities that are in front of you into the right place, right time sort of thing. But it just seems like all of this is lining up. So talk a little bit about your thoughts in terms of sort of what's next for the generation, and milk consumption and kind of the future of dairy.
Yeah, no. So on Moozy, we've designed this to go after Gen Z, and I think if you step back like 20 years ago, milk has been consumed on the table with on the kitchen table with a glass, with your spaghetti at night. Like you have your milk. Well, over the past 20 years, that moment doesn't happen as much, and it's a lot of grab and go, that type of stuff. At this, as well as if you walk past the dairy case, um, there has been a lack of innovation in that dairy case over the last 20 years. The number one brand that's selling is the brand gallon milk. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that has a bit hurt our industry. There is a lot more going into it now, but I feel like a lot of other beverages have outpaced the dairy industry because milk is milk, and we've seen a decline over the last 20 years. At that same time, over the past, we've been bottling for 7 8 years, and when we first started, whole milk was about 30% of our sales. Now it's probably 70% of our sales. So
Mm,
I've seen it in the past 7 8 years that we've been bottling is everybody's interested in whole milk. We're seeing it get back in schools. It has a lot of flavor. And it has healthy fats, and people are realizing the benefits of the fats, the proteins, and it's
yep.
real in the taste. So I think it's coming back, and then our goal is to target that with bring some innovation in there, make some new ways to consume it, the grab and go, and focused on telling that farm story that's it's coming directly from the farm, getting out to the shelves, and you can feel the younger generation can feel a part of that journey. They
Yeah.
want they want something real. We're working with the two classes at UConn marketing, and we're hearing that, students want real food. They want to know the story. They're going to try. They care about what, from a sustainability standpoint to what goes into producing that food, and they're more educated. And our goal is to try to fit in that space. We don't have it all figured out. We're still really new at this side of it. So I don't know, getting lucky, we'll talk in a year and nothing will happen, but really hopeful at how do we tap into this next generation of consumers, but also giving them a really good tasting product that they can
Yeah.
enjoy in a different landscape. And we see like alcohol and all that is actually declining, and other beverages are increasing. So rather than going out and getting drunk at the bar, maybe there'll be milk bars or milk drunk. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and you've got your vision and your priorities could not be more aligned, focused on great tasting product, everything that you're talking about in terms of building the next gen farm of the future, and how you've been able to bring innovation into the farm operation, from the barn to the canning line, digester, solar, all around. I'm sure that a year from now you will continue to go far, and 50 years from now we'll have to do another episode here to see what the update is at that point. But thank you so much for joining me today and telling the story of yourself and the farm, and the continued growth of the innovation over there. Really excited about the future of Oakridge and Moozy in particular. Thanks for taking the time. Thank you for listening to Spilled Salt. I'm your host, Maureen Ballatori. Spilled Salt is an Agency 29 production. Agency 29 is a brand-building firm for food, beverage, and agriculture brands. Learn more at agency29.com. For more information about the podcast, visit spilledsaltpodcast.com. Use that website to send me questions or recommendations for future guests. I always love hearing from you. Spilled Salt is available anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. Please like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.